Right, okay, continue. Yes, like I said, good afternoon. And as Mutu very kindly introduced, I work for TASC, the ambulance staff charity. I would have said how many of you have heard about us, but as we're all doing it through Zoom, trying to get a show of hands up in a very limited screen time, I won't do that. So I'll just assume that you've not been aware of our organization. Just to give you, unless anybody sort of has heard of us, then wonderful. So yes, we're a national UK charity. We're dedicated to supporting our ambulance staff. So basically when I talk about us being national, I include us as a United Kingdom. So we help ambulance staff within Wales, Scotland, the Shetlands, all the islands. We support their mental, physical well-being. We look after their family, the retired ambulance staff. So people who have been doing long service within the ambulance service, who retire and then either sustain an injury or go through anything in terms of mental trauma. Where did we begin? Well, we started off, and believe it or not, we've been around for a long time. We began life in the 1980s as the Ambulance Services Benevolent Fund. In those days, pretty much any organization in terms of that were doing anything to do with the blue light or emergency services were very much sort of grant giving. So we had a pot of money from which we had an investment pot that grew over years, certain time period. And then we had a couple of sort of trustees who were managing a grant giving system. So basically what they did was they were ambulance staff who would, I feel absolutely strange saying this, but worked in their back bedrooms to continue the service. And they would review applications from ambulance staff and award grants, financial grants. But what had started to happen was over the years, the financial side of it was becoming a much more, less of a service. And there was a lot of aspects around mental health. And the demand was growing in terms of other services, and hence the need why it needed to be moved from somebody's back bedroom to an actual organization. So we established ourselves as a charitable organization in 2015. We also changed our name. So we were no longer known as the Ambulance Services Benevolent Fund. We became TASC, the Ambulance Staff Charity. We're based in Coventry, so that's where our head office is. So we are a West Midlands organization. But as I said before, we support the whole of the UK. Now, within the ambulance sector, I don't know if you're aware, but we have the NHS and we have the private sector. We support both. So in terms of when we talk about when we're providing support for the ambulance community, we talk about both the NHS and the independent sector. And when we also talk about who we support, we mean all the roles that work within the ambulance service. So that could be from the ambulance technician to the paramedics, to those who actually take the calls, which are the call handlers. As I said, we started off very much as a grant giving, and in the past 6 or 7 years, we've absolutely grown our services. We have seen a demand in these key areas that I'm outlining on this slide for you. So again, mental health, financial well-being, peer support and well-being. By peer support, I'll go into it a little bit more later on in my presentation, and physical rehabilitation. So we're talking about sort of local physiotherapy and specialist treatment when one of our ambulance personnel sustains an injury whilst on duty. To be eligible for our support, like I said, anybody working within the ambulance service, from the call handlers to the technicians to the paramedics, as long as they've done at least 12 months, they will be eligible for our assistance. So they can self-refer or be referred through their ambulance trusts. Bearing in mind in the UK, there are about 13 ambulance trusts, NHS trusts, should I say. So that's independent from the independent sector, that employ over 70,000 ambulance staff. So you can imagine the numbers are huge. I've thrown in a couple of case studies because I think it's really important for everyone to kind of understand the impact that we make and the kind of people we've helped. So this is Ruth. She sustained a shoulder injury a few years ago. She works as part of the heart. She's a heart paramedic. So basically she's part of the hazardous area response team. So they basically go into what we call hot zone areas. And she sustained a shoulder injury, and her employers decided that while her injury was evaluated, they would put her on alternative duties, which meant she was taken off the job that she loved and allocated office desk duties. What that meant was Ruth started deteriorating not only in her physical well-being, but her mental health. And it took her a few months before she got in touch with us. We evaluated her case, and we were able to work quite quickly with her because we could see that her mental health had deteriorated quite significantly. So we were able to provide her a 2-week residential rehabilitation program. Over the next few months, she went through a sort of a sustained physio program that helped with her shoulder injury. And I'm delighted to say she's returned back to the job she loves. And she's delighted. And when she says TASC saved my life, honestly, if Ruth could be here tonight, she is one of our champions and would say the same thing. So we're delighted that she's back doing the job that she loves. And for us, building that resilient ambulance community is absolutely paramount. We can help anybody, like I said, from the NHS side to the independent sector. But again, our criteria for the independent sector is that they have to be CQC registered. And again, service personnel must have had 12 months service to access our support. We also, like I said before, include support for retirees. So again, the same criteria for them is, so even if they did 12 months at any point in their life within the ambulance service, and then they went on to do different jobs and they've retired and they've got some sort of injury or need some sort of support, they are able to contact TASC and be evaluated for that support. We're quite a holistic organization. So when we know that somebody is either going through mental or physical trauma, we know that it just doesn't affect that one individual. It affects the family. If the last 18 months have taught us anything, that things can happen, life can turn around so quickly. And the impact is not only on that person itself, but the family take it. The amount of ambulance service personnel that we've lost, either through COVID, and unfortunately through suicide in the last year has been phenomenal. We hold a memorial service every 2 years. We'll be holding one this year at the Arboretum. And I can't tell you the amount of people that we will be remembering and commemorating this year is so significant. And it's with a very heavy heart that I say this, because we knew a few of them ourselves. So to lose them at such a young age. And so the support that we provide the family is we provide the children with counseling, but we also do bereavement support. So we help like the spouses, the parents. We also cover funeral costs because we know it's a very tough time, and it's one of ours that we've lost. So, you know, for us, it's a very sad, and we want to be able to provide that support for those family members to say, we are here, we're your safety net. We also run a volunteer program, and in terms of our volunteers within the ambulance sector, you would have seen that there are, especially in the last vaccination program, there were a lot of community first responders that sort of signed up to roll out the vaccination. So we support them too. They have to be a current volunteer and again have given at least 3 years of some sort of volunteering service within the ambulance sector. We also help students. So in terms of the student aspect is we provide them, we don't provide them with financial support, but what we do provide them with is sort of mental health, because they do, the final year students will go in to do a placement training with an ambulance trust. They may see something in that very early stage. They'll go to some trauma-based incident, be completely unprepared for it, and then not know how to sort of desensitize or evaluate it themselves. So they can become quite traumatic themselves. And what we like to do is do that early intervention. For us at TASC, it's so key. They always say early intervention is the best source in terms of making sure that there isn't any long-term effects or long-term sustained mental or physical injuries. I want to talk about Andy as well. So again, he was an emergency care assistant with the Yorkshire Ambulance Service. He'd been suffering with his mental health for a number of years. He'd been attending a series of bad jobs. When we talk about bad jobs, there are sort of incidents where someone's either passed away or they weren't able to revive someone, or something so tragic happened that it's left a lasting impact on our ambulance staff. And it ended up with him having a total breakdown. So when he went to his ambulance trust, they offered him CBT, which is a very short-term counseling service that help you with your mental health. Now, this didn't help him in the long term. In May, I'm very sad to sort of say, him and his crew member were assaulted on a job. It's become so common, and you wouldn't believe that even though we were going through that horrendous pandemic, the amount of our ambulance staff that have been assaulted, not only by family members or the patients themselves. Unfortunately, in this incident, it was the patient. The patient ended up pulling out a gun on both Andy and his crewmate. They somehow managed to get themselves out of that situation and call for emergency backup. But it sort of left a very traumatic impact on Andy. And then 2 weeks later after that, he was then called out to do a suicide job. And unfortunately, that ended up with the person actually committing suicide. And what that meant was that Andy quickly deteriorated, not only with his mental health, he became a different person. And it was actually a colleague of his who knew about TASC who actually referred him to us. We have an in-house counselor who's trained. And very quickly, through conversations with Andy, he was able to diagnose him with complex PTSD. We funded 12 sessions of trauma-based CBT, so that's very specific. So we're very proud that we're not a one-size-fits-all. We understand that everybody's situation is different. And I'm delighted to say Andy has started his road to recovery. He knows that he's being well supported, and we'll be with him now probably for life. As I mentioned, that was one case of post-traumatic stress disorder, which we all know as PTSD. You'll be horrified to know that 82% of our ambulance workers have experienced a disturbing incident in the last 6 months. That's absolutely horrific. In 2019-20, 43% of the people that came to us, so the ambulance staff who came to us for support, had all shown signs of PTSD. We work very closely with Dr. Jennifer Wild. She is our in-house clinical advisor who's been doing a lot of research with ambulance staff. And it was very interesting where she did this research with King's College London, where they identified that paramedics were at 20% more to develop PTSD. When you look at soldiers, soldiers develop, it's between 5 to 7% of soldiers who actually develop PTSD. So when you think about it, you would think that soldiers, you know, see a lot at war. That should be a higher number. But when you think about the ambulance staff and the paramedics and the technicians that go out on a day-to-day, they see something horrific every single day. And the effects that has is so much more greater on their mental health. I just wanted to kind of give you a quick sort of overview of our number in the last sort of year. And I know every organization has had a very tough time, but we've seen 56 more interventions than the previous year. We provided over 2,000 hours of mental health support. We've given out 56,000 in financial grants. So when I talk about financial grants, that would have been bereavement, funeral costs, where some of our ambulance staff were shielding, or their partners were put onto the furlong scheme, and then they had to reduce their hours and couldn't cover childcare. So we stepped in, and we funded over 430 physical rehab sessions. So that means the number of our ambulance staff that are sustaining injuries and are needing physio and rehab has increased significantly. Our wellbeing support team are exceptional. We have a free phone number. Last year, we were very fortunate that the Royal Foundation, which is manned by both the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, very kindly said that they were going to help all the blue light emergency services, and awarded us quite a significant grant for 2 years to not only help our wellbeing support team, but we extended our free phone and support line. We were able to increase the hours of that. We have a lot of information online. So if you are able to check our website at some point, I honestly would recommend that you do. There's a lot of information on there that may be useful. We are not government funded. We are totally reliant on grants and the support of not only our ambulance community, but the general public. Here are just a few ways of what schemes that we have got going at the moment. So in terms of your traditional fundraising, from doing fundraising events to leaving a gift in your will, and we have a monthly lottery that we run as well. So some of our events that we're hosting towards the end of this year, because we did a lot of virtual events, and I'm sure you guys have been to a lot of virtual quizzes. I think I've done so many virtual quizzes that I'm quizzed out that I'm now thinking I could apply to go on Chase and actually face one of the quizzes on there. But yes, so we've got a Get Active for TASC starting from this September the 9th. September the 9th is Emergency Services Day. It's a very special day where all the emergency services days are being recognized. So we have an event that we're launching on that day. We've got a number of people that are taking part in the London Marathon. It's going to be quite interesting this year because they've now postponed it to October 2021. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like. We're also used to the April date that, I hope the weather holds out. But yes, we have a number of people taking part in the London Marathon and fundraising for TASC. And we've got a Santa Dash taking place on the 18th of December. Who doesn't want to dress up as Santa and do a run? There's, like I mentioned before, there's so many ways to support TASC. We know not everybody's going to want to do some sort of fundraising event or a challenge. So here are just a few ways that, we would appreciate support. We're always looking for volunteers, and sometimes you don't need to have an ambulance background, but anything to do with sort of, I don't know, marketing, media, admin, filming, those kind of skills, we would love to have you volunteer for us. Research is a really good one as well, because we have so many services that we provide for the ambulance sector, but we know that there's always new and innovative services that are being launched, especially around mental health. So if there's a new service or anything that you feel like would be beneficial to our ambulance staff, there's a lot of new therapies that are always being introduced. There's, anything that you think, oh, okay, this would really help with us adding or improving to our services portfolio would be greatly appreciated. And then, as David very kindly alluded before, making introductions to people, organizations like yourselves that may want to support us in the future. And yes, me being able to present, hopefully next time in person, and maybe with one of our paramedics to come and tell you in real life the impact we've had on their life. We have this weekend a Super Saturday event coming up, where we've got 20 people going on to compete on the fastest zip line in the world, which is in Wales. But we also have key individuals from the ambulance community. So we've got Tracy Nichols, who is the CEO of the College of Paramedics. We've got Anna Perry, the Deputy Managing Director of AACE. So AACE is the Association of Ambulance Chief Executives. And then we've got the CEO, Will Hancock of South Central. Believe it or not, our support is significant in the West Midlands. So we work very closely with WEMAS, which is the West Midlands Ambulance Service, and South Central, and believe it or not, Scotland. And then Kerry Gulliver, who is the HR, Director of HR at East Midlands Ambulance. Last year has been phenomenal in terms of people wanting to support the ambulance community, from the old to the young. This is our youngest supporter, 12-year-old Lucas, who walked, believe it or not, 30,000 steps every day in March. And I tried doing it for one day. I don't know how he did it every single day. And I could not walk the next day. My legs were in so much pain. So, hats off to our Lucas. And we had Gainsborough Ambulance, a local ambulance hub, come and support him. They did this fantastic little certificate for him. And he was so overjoyed that he said to his mom, "Mom, I don't want to be anything else but a paramedic when I grow up." So, we think recruit them young. But yes, it's our fundraisers. Honestly, they are so enthusiastic, energetic, and they want to do so much. When I say it's from the general public to the ambulance community themselves, because they see TASC as their charity. So when you look at the firefighters, they have the firefighters charity, that's their charity. You have police with Police Care UK. So we are the ambulance staff charity. We are there for them, the ambulance staff. And I'm so glad that they not only get behind us full-heartedly, but they support us to make sure that we're there not only for them, but their colleagues. So that's me. I hope I've kind of not gone too much over time. And if I have, apologies, David and Mutu. Any questions? I'm leaving this slide up here because it's got my details on here for anybody that would like to sort of maybe ask me any questions afterwards, or, like I said, introduce me to other organizations. So yes, any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jasmin. I think if people will raise their hands, then David will coordinate with whoever want to ask any questions. He will do it.
Yeah, I can't see very many at the moment.
David, can you see me?
David Aspinall has a hand up, I think.
Yeah. Jasmin, thank you for that. Brilliant. You mentioned memorial service at the Arboretum.
Yes.
Which Arboretum are you referring to?
The one in Staffordshire,
The National?
the National Arboretum.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
that's right. Yes.
You have a garden there, do you?
Yes, we do. 16th of September. I'm quite happy to share that with everybody as well.
So what form does your garden take?
Um,
Or is it simply memorial, a statue or
it's
something like that?
It's simply a memorial, and we do a roll of honor. So one of our chief executives of an ambulance trust, and it's usually West Midlands, will go through everyone that sort of passed away, and it's a little roll, and then we sort of put it next to our, and then Rita laid out our sort of statue.